Rated M for mature.
Don't let your kids watch it!
Hey there, Artie!
Akasaka was finally recovering from the intense pain of being kicked in a rather sensitive area. Ooh, cheap shot. He had bumped into the captor carrying the boy by the back entrance. He had seen Toshiki Inukai's picture plenty of times, but wasn't able to immediately ascertain if the boy in front of him was the real deal, with his mouth covered in packing tape. Also, with his limited experience, it wasn't hard for him to panic over how to deal with the situation. Okay, I gotta know. Yeah. I keep forgetting... Is it the exact same music for all of these? Yes, it is. Okay, cool. They're just like, this song is perfect. We don't need to fix it for any of the new versions of it. Of course, the perpetrator didn't overlook this momentary lapse. His kick landed squarely in a critical spot, with Akasaka not even having time to call for help. As the man flung the boy over his shoulder, he headed towards the front of the shed. But upon hearing Uisi's bellowing voice, he gave up on going that direction. He then dashed off towards the forest, as if the weight of the boy slung over his shoulder wasn't even there. Akasaka was lost for a moment. Meeting up with Uisi, who was fighting with the enemy, was by far the safer option. But he couldn't just lose sight of the fleeing man. Akasaka stood up and chased after the captor's back. He ran through a short thicket, branches and fallen leaves crunching underfoot. The tips of the branches raked and clawed at him, small scratches inscribing themselves on his body one after another. He kept on stepping into puddles and mud, and his shoes were soon filled with murky water. This is literally the same path that we killed Satoko's bad uncle on, right? Probably just reused art, but not the same area. For Akasaka, traveling through this unexplored forest was, even though this was an emergency situation, extremely unpleasant. As he said that, he regretted it immediately, as it was but a waste of breath. There wasn't a thief in the world that would politely stop when told to by the police. To a city boy like Akasaka, running through this forest was an arduous task. However, it must have been no easy task for either for the man carrying the minister's grandson. He neither gained nor lost ground in his pursuit. Akasaka, upon realizing that, gained back a bit of composure. Just keep on chasing him. We are running in the same conditions. In fact, the man running with an awkward stride was at far more of a disadvantage. They couldn't run forever. Eventually, he'd definitely trip and fall. As long as he was being hounded, he would definitely stumble. And soon his wish was fulfilled. Oh no, not Kid, Napper! The man who had stepped into something and lost his balance was no longer able to bear the weight of the boy, dropping him. Akasaka, in all honesty, didn't care about the perpetrator at all, just as long as he could ensure the safety of Toshiki Inukai. So if the perpetrator ran off by himself, it was perfectly acceptable. But it seemed that Toshiki Inukai was important to the man as well, and didn't choose to just run away empty-handed. Akasaka didn't know what to do in this kind of situation. His first priority should probably be to ensure the safety of the boy, subduing his captor being less important. Grappling with the perpetrator wasn't something he planned on. But most likely, it was either do or die. Akasaka's moment of indecision proved to be fatal. The man, aiming right between, or rather, for both of Akasaka's eyes, struck out with a jab. Not wanting that, Akasaka raised both of his hands to shield his face. At that moment, the man kicked at his unguarded midsection. The pain almost felt like his vital organs were being squeezed out of his body, but he latched onto his opponent's leg. But his opponent didn't hesitate one bit. Leading with his seized foot, the man jumped at Akasaka, applying pressure and pushing him down. Akasaka was unable to withstand that and fell, but under no circumstances was he letting that leg go. The two men fell together in a tangled heap. The man was desperate to pull his leg free from Akasaka, but having fallen in an awkward position, was unable to. The two of them rolled around on the ground, floundering about trying to gain an advantage. But Akasaka, who was holding onto his opponent's knee with both hands, and that opponent, who had complete freedom to move his upper body, were in two completely different situations. Break his leg so we can't get away. The man gained a positional advantage on Akasaka, who was still latched onto his leg and couldn't move away, and pounded full force on his head with both of his fists. Not only that, he found a rock nearby and beat it against Akasaka's skull. Never mind, that's game. Thwack, thwack, thwack! The difference between being hit with a fist and being hit with a rock was vast. Akasaka quickly thought of letting go of the man's leg to free his hands to protect his head. But if he let go here, the man would get away. If he didn't dig in here, everything would be for naught. The boy he was trying to save was right there. He was going to save him and go back to Tokyo. he could do that, then it was goodbye to this freakish village. Without looking, I could tell my forehead had split open and was gushing blood. But I didn't let go of the man's leg. How could I? I won't let go! When the man realized that no matter how much he beat my head, he wasn't getting away, he used both his hands to grab my throat as if to crush my windpipe. I pulled my head back as a slight form of resistance, but it was of no use. The man's hands enveloped my neck and began to crush it like a vice. It was less about the pain of not being able to breathe, so much as it was about choking so hard I feel like I was going to throw up. Throw up in his face! It felt like my stomach was going to turn itself inside out, but I could only endure it. Man, Akasaka's built different. Damn it, damn it, damn it! My throat hurts! I won't let go. I can't let go! I didn't want to be here. I wanted to resolve this and go back to Tokyo. Go back to Tokyo and talk to Yuki. All about our unborn child. We were going to talk about our bright future. I had no intention of loosening my grip. However, it loosened just a bit and the man's leg came free. The man kicked as hard as possible and I tumbled backwards. My head was spinning and I was unable to get up right away. No, I couldn't even put any strength into getting up in the first place. Even so, I couldn't back down. If I let him escape now, this chance would never come again! Even just catching their scent was nothing short of a miracle. If we weren't able to get the minister's grandson back here, there wouldn't be another chance. The man tried to drag the boy to his feet, but the kid was displaying some unexpected resistance, allowing me to get up unnoticed. I grasped the rock the man had just beat me over the head with. Now it's my turn. The rock should be able to supplement what meager strength I had left, adding more than enough power to my attack. My fist, still wrapped around the rock, dug into the side of the man's torso. It seems like it hurt him quite a bit. The man rolled around for a bit, clutching his side. Bro, I got smashed in the face with a rock like 10 times. You got hit one time in the side. We are not the same. Freed from the man's grip, the boy hid behind me. To the boy, those were the words he was waiting for the most. But the crisis was still not over. That was because even though he was still clutching at his side, the man had gotten up again and had taken a fighting stance. I could see in the man's eyes the resentment at the pain I had caused him, and the confidence that he could still beat me. If I were to clash with him head-on again, he might not even stop if my head were split open. Okay, that guy must have been going very easy on us with beating our head in with a rock. Because I'm pretty sure most people die that way. The man reacted adversely to the word reinforcements. That was because he now knew that arguing like this wasn't just a waste of time, but put him closer and closer to danger. Realizing that, the man shifted mental gears almost too quickly. What the man pulled from his back pocket was all things a gun! Of course, I'm a police officer. It's not like I don't know what a gun is. But having one pointed at me was something I'd never experienced before. How did this guy get a gun? Was it real? Of course it was! There's no way it would be a replica in the situation like this. Oh my gosh, Akasaka! Dude, this guy's playing it so smart! Wow! I would not be anywhere close to this good in a crisis situation. As long as he still held that gun, no matter how much I yelled at him, I was at a distinct disadvantage. You know what, folks? I think I sense a choice coming on. Let's just make a temporary save, shall we? I was still at a distinct disadvantage, but I still had a fighting chance. If I were in his shoes, instead of wasting time yelling at each other like this, I would just shoot him and take the boy. That way was the fastest and would suppress any sort of fervent resistance from him. But the man was demanding my surrender without having fired a shot, meaning that he either didn't want to shoot or couldn't. In other words, the man in front of me was soft. If I could buy even just a little more time, the factors that would lead to my victory were numerous. Luisi was probably on his way, and the reinforcements he called for before coming here should already be well on their way too. Not only that, but they should have contacted the local police box. Without a doubt, somebody stationed in the village would be here much quicker than that.
撃たれなきゃこいつの怖さがわからねえかよ。どうせ逃げられやしない。無駄に罪を重ねるな。
At that moment, I heard the rustling of foliage and heavy footsteps approaching. If Uisi was coming here, it was a whole new ballgame. The man couldn't have more than one gun. Oh yeah? Second gun. Come on!
おいさん、ここです。ここです。
I don't think it's Uisi. I had thought that time was on my side, but I had failed to even imagine that the enemy could also have reinforcements. You could tell the man who had just appeared was one of the perpetrators just by looking at him. Is his name Kid Napper too?
何しよってんの。はよせんとな。警官来るんで。なん油うっとんしゃん。
くそ、おいさんはどうしたってんだ。
ああ、あんの樽男かいよ。落としたったら泡吹いとんよ。
おいさんがくそ。
The boy, sensitive to the impending danger, curled up behind my back. How could this be? Damn it!
期待してた相方は来ないってよ。ざまあねえぞ。観念するのはてめえの方だ。
As I backed up against a large tree while still protecting the boy, the second man also pulled out a gun.
2回しか言わん。頭抱えてそこにうつ伏せになるんよ。
断る。
Oh! Oh! As I shouted in protest, blood erupted from my left shoulder. It took a few moments to register that I had been shot. At least they didn't go for the kill shot. Compared to the ones from the movies and TV dramas, the first actual gunshot I heard was simple and mundane. In fact, the sound was more akin to the small fireworks I used to buy from the corner store as a kid. But there was no comparing the pain. It was a fear you only knew after you'd been shot. The boy, in his confusion, tugged at my clothes, agitating the wound even further. I wanted to put on a bold face and reassure him, but my voice was hoarse and had the opposite effect.
大丈夫。すでに応援は要請してあるんだ。すぐに警官隊が駆けつけてくれる。
警官が来る前に、お前ん額にもっぱつくれちゃる方が早いんよ。無駄な殺生すなっちゅう、本家に言われとんか加減しとんね。あんまり舐めとんと、容赦せんとよ。
Okay, I think maybe we need to listen to Kidnapper. This was bad. It was very, very bad. The second man was a completely different beast than the first. He had no signs of indecisiveness or mercy. If this man said he'd shoot, he'd shoot. He wasn't somebody that a man like me could buy time from. I really hated to admit it, but at this moment the image of Yuki's smiling face crossed the back of my mind. I knew what that meant. I was warning myself not to throw my life away over a matter of pride. Of course I didn't want to die here. I was just starting a new life with Yuki, and I wanted to see the face of our soon-to-be-born child. Why should I risk my life for some minister's grandson when I was at such a critical juncture in my own life? Ah, damn it! Damn it! I need to stop rambling at myself. So what do I do now? Give up the boy and extend my own life? What a good idea. Everybody's life is precious. My own life was in danger. Nobody would blame me. Ah, god damn it. It hurts. It hurts! I'm gonna make another temporary save. Because I have a feeling we're making a big choice soon, and that could lead to a good or bad ending. If I had known that it would be this painful, I wouldn't have played the tough guy. My biggest miscalculation, though, was the sound of the gunshot was far quieter than I had imagined. If it was only that loud, it would be drowned out by the rain in the forest. It wasn't something that somebody far away could hear. Plead for my life. Watch for an opportunity. Okay. Not what I was thinking would be the choices. Okay. I mean, watch for an opportunity doesn't necessarily mean we're going to try something. It just kind of means we're going to play it quiet, but still not, like, give up. So I'm going to go for that one. Shit. I can't afford to die in a place like this. I need to survive and return to Yuki's side. For a moment, I catch a glimmer of hesitation in the eyes of the man holding the gun. This guy's unsure about shooting me? If so, maybe if I jump at him now, I could... Okay, I didn't think that's what you were going to do, necessarily, but I'm pretty sure we're just about to die. How is Akasaka doing this when he has been beaten up, bruised, bashed in the head multiple times with a rock, and shot in the shoulder. Like, how is this happening? Akasaka, I didn't tell you to do that. In a flash, everything before me grows dark, as my consciousness leaves me behind. It was only after my body temperature rapidly came down and a burning sensation in my chest turned numb that I realized I had been shot. Bad ending? Bad ending. I didn't tell him to just jump at the guy! I told him to keep his eyes open! This is what... I hate it when games do this, and they're like, oh, which choice do you make? And they're very, very misleading with the choices. Like, if it had said, beg for my life versus try to jump them, I would have said beg for my life. Like, obviously. That's not what I told him to do, though. Alright. Back we go. Yeah, watch for an opportunity is not the same as recklessly jump at the guy with the gun. Dear Lord, game. Stop doing these stupid decisions. Okay, well, I guess we got to plead for the life.
くそ待てよ待ってくれよ死にたくないよ
あんこっちだって死なせとうない分かればええん分かれば
撃つなよ撃つなよ帰りを待ってる妻がいるんだ
Oh, is he gonna give the sob story in order to buy time?
死にたくないんだよ
叫ばんとでも歌んねおとなしい頭抱えてうつ伏せになったら歌んだ
I mean, my head is actively bleeding out, so...
本当だろうな本当だろうな約束は守れよ絶対だぞ男と男の約束だぞ
守ったの男と男の約束
Promise between men. Okay, he can't break the man code.
守れよ守れよじゃあうつ伏せになるからな約束守るんだから銃を向けるのやめろよやっぱ撃つ気なんだろ撃つ気なんだろ俺が撃つついになったら後頭部を撃つ気なんだろ
歌んね歌んねわった
It's like he's saying I won.
しまってる銃はしまってる男と男の約束
Promise between men. Let's go.
これなら文句ないんてね
え極めて文句ないです
There
よ
we go. Let's go! It was over in a flash. The moment he lowered his gun, Uisi didn't let this chance slip by. Uisi had been asserting the situation for quite some time from behind the two men. You could have mentioned that before giving me the choice! But since they had their guns trained on me, he didn't really have a chance to jump in. Seeing the look on Uisi's face indicating that he wanted me to create an opening, I took on that role completely. That was one of the most freaking misleading visual novel choices I think I've ever seen. I hate that. Uisi forcefully lifted the arm that was holding the gun. He then took the gun from the man's hand in only an instant. The other man, who was a bit slow in grasping what was happening, pointed his gun at them, but with his ally grappling with Uisi, he couldn't pull the trigger. If that man was the one that was wrestling with Uisi in the moment, he might have shot without hesitation. But this man wouldn't shoot. He couldn't shoot. Uisi kicked the other man away, while aiming the stolen gun with his left hand, pulled out his own. With guns akimbo, he was aiming at both men at the same time.
大手シャトリってとこですかね
Let's go. It was perfectly played. But heedless of the guns pointing at them, the men shouted "Scram!" as they scattered away at full speed. It was over in an instant. Those two running away without putting up a fight was honestly unexpected. Uisi, quietly clicking his tongue in admonishment, slipped both guns into his pants pockets. That means Uisi definitely watched them shoot us in the bad ending.
あいつらもよく知ってるな
何をですか
逃げてる背中を警官は撃てませんからね私も退職金が惜しいもんで
Oh, that's why. Uisi and I grinned at each other. By the way, your head is bleeding very profusely right now. Yeah, it happens.
犬飼検察大臣のお孫さん
はい
これはでかい事件になるかなどうせトカゲの尻尾切りになるんでしょうけどね
Uisi smiled amusingly. The fact that the Onikafuchi Guardians, or rather the Sonozaki family behind them, was pulling the strings was apparent, but proving it wouldn't be easy. And, with apologies to Uisi, this incident was unlikely to go public. If this caused an uproar, it would obviously lead to the minister losing his office. With HQ having decided that doing so was in the national interest, this would probably be cleaned up quietly. It might be a rough way of saying it, but this was born in the shadows, and it was going to die in the shadows. I was born in the shadows. Luisi probably already understood the implications behind this incident.
とにかく非常線を張らせましょう。連中まだ一丁は拳銃を持ってるようですからね。それから犬飼君を保護して赤坂さんはすぐに病院に行かないと。
As the tension in the situation faded, the pain from the gunshot wound in my shoulder blossomed once again. My forehead was also stinging painfully and had grown hot enough to start a fire. Thinking that the tension had caused me to sweat, I wiped my forehead, but what came off was a large amount of blood. I realized that my shirt had been stained bright crimson from the blood flowing from my head. I turned around. The boy was safe and sound. Without a doubt. There would probably be an investigation on the men who ran, but that was for another day. At this point in time, I could safely say we had cleared the major hurdle of securing the boy's safety. As soon as I recognized that, it felt like the lights in my head had been hit by a power failure. Yeah, you were running on adrenaline for that, which is why you weren't feeling the pain very much. My knees buckled from underneath me, the ground there feeling as soft as a cloud. It didn't feel unpleasant, even as I was covered in the rain-soaked mud. Luisi came closer, asking if I was okay, but somehow I couldn't tell. I turned off the switch to the last light in my head. That's not good. Luisi might not be able to get you and the kid out while keeping his eyes peeled. The exhaustion enveloped me. Sleep. Something softer than any blanket wrapped around me. I don't think this is gonna end well. You picked the wrong time to pass out. New tips unlocked. A very kind person. Mission accomplished. Made a daring rescue. How many more achievements are there, by the way? There are 4 more. Okay. Trying to get a gauge for how much time is left. A very kind person. Patients admitted to the hospital can only accept calls at fixed times. That's why she wouldn't be receiving a call from him today. Yesterday, she had teased him that he had got lonely easily, so he might have struggled with the idea of calling her sooner. That was much easier to imagine, rather than that he might just be too busy to call. Because he's just that type of person. Yuki whispered that, smiled to herself. The announcement that visiting hours were over played over the hospital intercom along with some music. She exchanged pleasantries with the family of the patient that was staying in the same room as her. Probably eager for his mother to be discharged, their small child was wearing a beaming smile. That child's mother was pregnant in the bed next to mine, with what may be their new brother or sister. They were probably ready to burst with the expectations, dreams, and worries of having a new sibling. The joys of a growing family. Bathing in those warm feelings, I stroked my own belly, which had grown quite large. I talked with him about how many children we wanted to have. We talked about how if we had 3, it would certainly be lively. However, there was the inescapable worry of whether I would be able to handle giving birth that many times.
でもそんなことを不安に思って出産を嫌う母なんていないですものね。
Yuki, smiling as she said that to herself, gently stroked her stomach. The Metropolitan Public Safety Division. The place where that man's sense of justice had led him. That person was actually a very gentle, very fragile person. He didn't talk much about these specifics, but I didn't think he was suited for the assignment he was on right now. But, as long as he said he was going to try his best, I would watch over him warmly.
あなたのお父さんはね、とっても頑張り屋さんなのよ。くちょくちょくちょくちょ。
Yuki seemed to be enjoying herself as she talked to her own belly. At that moment, Yuki suddenly became concerned about something and looked out the window. It used to be this time. Long ago. She remembered that when she was little, around this time in the countryside where her grandmother lived, the Higurashi would fill the air with their chorus. This was the middle of Tokyo. Unlike in the countryside, you couldn't hear the song of the Higurashi. But for some reason, at that moment, Yuki felt she wanted to hear that psalm. You want to hear the beep, beep, beep of the Higurashi? Alright then. I guess to each their own. You know what? I think that is where we call it for this stream.